All right, so we'll do the uh, round 2 to 6 with PR and myself. So, PR, I'll let you kind of go first. Maybe mention some second round draft picks that you like, just because I know I had a few that I drafted myself that I don't want to talk about.
Heard. So just right off the bat, a few of them that I definitely had on my list. I had Vic Wolf, somebody that Wi-Fi took. I liked him. I thought he's definitely up there, one of the top relief arms in this draft. Obviously Kirchner, who Peter took. Peter always has a knack for taking the good RPs right there in that second round. Trying to make sure that he keeps that bullpen right around and steady. It looks like we're gonna have to start chipping away at those guys a little earlier and prevent them from falling. He just bought himself right in there with a quick trade. Metcalf was on my list going to San Diego. There were some questions around him that I had, particularly. See, yeah, uh, particularly with him being a lefty. But to be honest, I must have actually been thinking about somebody else because he actually looks he's the real deal. He should be fine. Um, the control and the movement being that close together, kind of like, I've seen those guys kind of go left. No pun intended. But uh, but he's got that 70% ground ball rate, and it's kind of ridiculous. So if he's able to turn out, he's only 18 as well. So if he's able to develop the right way, he could definitely be a monster. Um, I liked Cadigan or Cadigan or whoever the guy I took at 33. I really liked him. I thought that he could have been worth taking in the first round. Copeland, a guy that Rocky picked. I thought he of those OFs that were the only ones there. They're all like 81 P. I think it was Boylan, it was Campo Donico, and it was Copeland, and even Mike Booth, and even another guy that Rocky took. Uh, he took a center fielder kind of later in the draft. I forgot his name. I'll probably find it a little later on. But um, out of those guys, I felt like Copeland had the best defense. I felt like he was the one that, like, if he becomes good, he's that guy you can play in the outfield and kind of play every day. He should have a pretty nice bat against righties if it develops well enough to play against lefties, and that's great. He's got bad health, but those guys tend to develop very well. So but yeah, besides that, on the second round, that's really I'd say Pat Dennison's a guy I had on my list too. Muina before he took that little tumble, but he's worth taking in the second round. But yeah, out of much of the second round, those are the guys I kind of had on my list and I was looking at.
I mean, I feel like you just listed every second round draft pick except any that I drafted uh, there. So thank you for picking everybody around them. Uh, Clearly, I know you didn't like those guys. So yeah, I know for me, Cadigan is somebody that I did kind of like. I thought he was the right-handed version of a McCarthy, but a little less eye. So I thought he was going to be a decent player. Then uh, when I was looking, Campo Donico that you also took, I actually did like as well. I thought it was a little bit early to take him, only because I think that center fielder you were talking about was Hans Watson that New York took. And I actually thought Watson was better than Campadonico. So there was that. Kirchner, MZ and I were talking. He could potentially be the best relief pitcher. Uh, to me, the three high end relief pitchers that that have a chance were Wolf, also taken in the second round, Kirchner, and the one I took being Fred Peters. I just personally went with the one that has the 65% ground ball rate, but I think Kirchner, who also has the 65, he's just as further away. So I thought those guys were kind of good picks there that really kind of stuck out. Otherwise, a lot of the other picks were just like when you look at the early part of the draft, St. Louis got the other high overall pitcher like John McDonald that I know it's his type of player that he likes, but for a lot of teams would be kind of a um, auto there. So that's kind of my take on the pieces that kind of stuck out for the second round. But if we look at the third round, a couple of the people that I did like was I think it was as I said, Hans Watson was
Yeah.
somebody that I really liked that New York took. Then Baguskis that Texas took, I think has a little bit of a chance, although he is pretty young. Um,
And I got to be honest, like some of these guys that made it here, I thought would be gone. There are some of these guys that that I obviously traded you the third round pick because I thought that some of these guys wouldn't be here. So looking at this draft right here, it's kind of like, damn, I wish I didn't trade it, but it's fine.
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely glad you traded it. I like Bulliard, that G Money got for Kansas City. That was another person that kind of stuck out. So
66 too, yeah.
yeah, and of course I had four third round draft picks. So to me, the one that stuck out is Joe Harris. So I think that he's going to peak pretty quickly. Um, with the
He's
fact
nice.
that he's only 10 upside. But the thing is, if he gets a really nice jump, because he hasn't jumped yet this season, so if he gets a jump, he could potentially be in the 80 control, 80 movement, just depending on the jump. So
Yeah, I
he
mean,
he has a real good shot of making a major league roster. Uh, and actually like being useful right away, which is kind of the reason I went with him, even though it was a little bit further away to kind of go there. So yeah, did you have anyone else in the third round that you kind of liked?
well, I actually did like Joe Harris as well. But I didn't think I would have had the balls to take him. Um, just because of the upside kind of there, and plus with Rusty Bowl Yard or whatever, being available at that point, I probably would have went with him and some of the other guys that were taken. But yeah, but Baguskus, I think you mentioned him. He was a guy that I had on my list. Um, and besides, I had Josh Tisley. You took one of those guys, Josh Tisley. That he's 21, but he's still kind of far away with the peak and the overall, and he has that makeup like it's kind of like a McGilly but you took him in the third instead of the first. To be honest, I mean, 8 - 8, peak points. If he gets the right jump, he's better than McGilly in my opinion. Um, but yeah, besides that, Lewis Midgley that MM took 16, 61 overall contact. All of his hitting vitals is are above his overall. He is not going to be able to play any defense almost anywhere besides maybe first. But if he gets the right development, the right jump, he's definitely could be pretty good, very good potentially. I just finished smoking, kind of like
No, you know what? One other guy that I kind of missed, the third round, Leon Doonan that Florida took. I actually kind of liked Doonan quite a bit. Yeah, switch hitting outfielder. he doesn't have a ton of upsides, so I mean, it's really kind of hard to see where he kind of goes. But I do kind of see him as a Donnie Button style player that I know Texas Tornado did like. Um,
One question: what did you think about Kleeman? Because I had him on my list. I know that obviously Percy shouted him out. Um, he's one of those guys that when you look at him closely, you're like, wow, why didn't he go in the second? Why didn't Peter take him or something like that?
sorry, who?
Andy Kleeman. I know it kind of sounds weird.
Oh,
Colorado took him in the third. I believe it was pick 73.
yeah, I mean, Kleeman looks decent, but once again, I think he's just your dartboard. And not to mention the 87 health probably means that his peak is a little bit lower.
That's true.
I personally have been burned by a lot of those relief pitchers that have such a low overall. So that's kind of why, like Tilsley, I'm not 100% sure whether he's going to be a starter. To me, he's got the two pitches, the 50% ground ball. He could be like a decent relief pitcher down the road. I did go with that Kyle Brady, who kind of fits the same idea as a Kleeman. Um, but yeah, I just find that some of those types of players are kind of a hit or miss. It it really just kind of depends what you want to go, because like someone like Max Eakin that got taken by um, the Dodgers, or even Ron Valentine by St. Louis, both of them they're controlled either just on par with the overall or just a little bit below. And, you know, they look a little bit like a safer pick, but less upside. So if you're fine with, if you don't care about your third round player, whether he is going to be good or whether it's just kind of a waste of a pick, boom or bust style, that's why you go with someone like a Kleeman. But
Yeah, I can also I kind of agree where you kind of want to have a guy who does something. He does a few things really well, but not everything kind of in that same level. If a guy guys, like his vitals are like 55, 55, 55, and he's like a 51 or a 52 overall, I've never really seen success taking any of those guys. I really like, you're a power pitcher or you're specifically a ground ball pitcher, and you have the vitals that kind of make up those things.
yeah, like
Um,
uh,
no, go
uh,
ahead.
yeah, like in the fourth round, I know you like Mike Booth. Um, I think he's a decent fielder, but with his upside, he basically has to have a consecutive really good jumps to be anything more than like a bench style player. Which, uh, you know, uh, genuinely speaking, the fourth round and later, I kind of go more for those darts to throw and hope whether or not they become good or not. But like Dave Thomas looks pretty decent in the fourth round. Uh, Texas uh, Texas took him. Uh,
Right before Booth. Yeah.
yeah, the shortstop that Texas Tornado got, I actually think he's a decent fielder. His offense is never going to be good, but he's a switch hitter. So to me, he's kind of like a worse version of Brooking that got taken in the first round. um, and will be like a tangible piece to your team. San Diego took Brett Strock, who has a lot of speed and good defense. I just don't know if he's ever going to make contact enough, but I did kind of like Strock that Percy ended up taking in the fourth round as well.
Um, I definitely liked the guy you took, Risley. I think he's really good as a grab in the fourth. I think that is amazing. I'm surprised he even fell that far. I liked Stang's pick of Helfand. I had him on my list. He took a little bit of a drop, but that that enabled Stang to kind of take him at 108, which is pretty cool. Um, Kind of just glancing right over here. Oh, so Houston also took our RP, Yvonne Salgado. I did not have this guy on my list, but I kind of looked at him really quick. You mentioned Houston taking a shortstop. I was looking. This guy looks pretty decent as well. He looks pretty good for a fourth round pick. He's doesn't have the kind of upside that like Risley has or something like that, but if he develops decently, he's a pretty good pitcher to get there. I obviously like Booth. I think he's going to be a really good fielder on the corners. He's obviously not going to be able to play center field, but I'll take that dart throw in the fourth here, even the early fourth. I would have taken that dart throw, like I said, in the second, depending on how I lined my chips up. But I think Booth with the right development. Obviously, you could say this about anybody, but him with the right development and to put together with that defense, it's going to be very valuable. And at the very least, if he gets a nice jump, he's an amazing trade chip. So I think Peter definitely did very well in this second and third round. He definitely normally he's a fourth or fifth round guy, taking those those darts that nobody wants to take. But he moved up to the second and the third. He did a very good job in the second. I hate to say it, fuck Peter, but it's good.
Yeah. In the fifth, honestly, there were a lot of like random pieces that I kind of like. Um, but I would say if there's one pick in the fifth round that I did really like is Lucas Kenny. Once again, he's going to be that shortstop that has just an amazing glove. Um, but he's going to be kind of your vacuum. That I think is a decent piece, but we'll kind of see how he does progress. I think Houston also took taking Kondo. He's one of the better defensive catchers that was in the draft. I don't think either one is going to be like, I don't know if there's anyone in the fifth or sixth round draft pick that you can really say, wow, that's going to be a steal later on. I think by the fifth and sixth, it kind of died out a little bit because even my list started to, like, I got Evan Goslin, and I think he was probably right at the bottom of my list. Um, in the sixth round, the interesting player could be something like Nathan Aikenhead, just because he does have the switch hitting capability, but and he can field. I don't think he's going to be a spectacular third base, but he could be a decent second base or shortstop there. And really, the only other player that I kind of liked in the draft near the end was um, Colville, who just kind of seems like he could be a little bit decent, but nothing spectacular. Um, but yeah, the fifth and sixth are really where you get those darts, which is why I always love it when people trade them for like two mil, because 2 mil's like nothing.
Yeah, that's I definitely well, I mean, I think I traded my fifth and sixth combined for like 8 or 10 million, but even then that's cheap. I do think that the fifth and sixth rounds, especially for teams that are rebuilding, you should definitely hold on to them over cash. Some people just it's almost people just don't have the patience to stay there and really either scout or either just be there for the draft, all 6 rounds and stuff like that. But if you definitely if you're able to make a living in those rounds, kind of like Peter, maybe a little bit like well, no, GB normally sells out of it, but there's a couple of GMs I think I can't really think of right now that do a good job of those fourth, fifth, and sixth round picks. I know that Rocky's one of them, those mid round picks, um, where they're those darts throws, and even if they don't turn out to anything, they're traded for something before that happens. So I definitely Of the guys in the fifth round, I know that he dropped a lot, but Eric Gillanders, I think his name is, him falling to the fifth is a. Let me see, is he there? I could have swore I just
Yeah,
saw him.
Peter took him in pick 30.
In what pick?
Pick 30 of round 5.
Oh, pick 30, round 5, 150. All right, yeah. Perfect. All right, so he's the last pick. So yeah, Eric Galanders, I think he took a big tumble. If he's able to kind of rebound that a little bit, I mean that's a 58 overall with 70 power, 70 eye. And his splits are not that bad for a right-handed hitter. If he's able to rebound on that development, that's an amazing piece right there to have, either in value in a trade or just in general to have on your team if you need a power bat. Um, but besides that, I have to be completely honest. I don't have any of these guys. They kind of deleted a lot of what was going on down here. Some of these guys though, like James Madsen that went to Arizona, he was on my list. I think he took a drop as well, if I'm not mistaken. Um, he was a guy I had that I was watching. Brian Louis that St. Louis took that first baseman. He's only got 10 between his overall and peak, but at a 67 overall, 74 power, and 82 eye, the right kind of jump turns you into something. Especially that low health always helps with the development and the boost, even though it does get counteracted by the fact that you get injured a lot, and cut your career down. Um, but overall, besides that, yeah, I don't have a ton of. I didn't have a ton of interest. I think Guillermo Perez is a guy Decker took. I thought he was a decent get. He's definitely got a long ways to go. He's still 21. So you don't know what's gonna happen there, and I think he took a drop. But he's Puerto Rican, so that's cool. So good pick there. But besides that, yeah, I don't have much happening in this fifth or sixth round. So if we look back, if they do that 10-year podcast for the draft or whatever, and we see some guys coming out in the fifth or sixth, I'll tip my cap to whoever took them.
Yeah, really, I just happened to glance quickly, and really the only other name I would mention is Houston taking Brian Hardnett. Um, he has 62 control at 49 overall, so just needs to kind of hit his peak, but and then he could be decent. But for the most part, there weren't a lot of other things that I really think stood out. Um, at this point. So it will be kind of interesting to see how everything happens with that.
Yes, for sure. And honestly, what's what's really funny is like going really quick, going back to like Mainzer Sarita kind of deal. I was always going to take Mainzer, but obviously, if if I had known that Sarita was, because honestly, I I was just really scared you would take Major. I was just really scared that because that's Sarita's not who I wanted. He's really good. He's not the kind of guy that I wanted to put on my staff. So I was just really scared that you would, because you had picks. You had like what, like two top five picks, and you had like pick 17. So you had the board on me. You know what I mean, and so to speak. So I was like, fuck it. I saw the bottom end of the draft. I'm like, nobody that I have on my list is going to fucking 74, 75. And at the time we were talking, the list was going down on the compensation picks. So shit, for all we knew, you'd be in that pick 80 by the end of the off season. So I made that move, but looking back on it now, it's like definitely you got what you I got what I wanted. You got what you wanted. I guess I can't say it was a bad end, but you got a pretty nice haul there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't even remember what pick it was in the third round.
74.
74.
So like Sabanikov. See, and he
Oh,
was on my list too. That's the interesting part too. He's
yeah.
not a bad guy. He took a little bit of a tumble. He took a 4 point drop, I think it was. He's not a bad bet to get. And also, if you look at the placement there, Hans Watson is still on the board there too. You know, because there's still a lot of meat on the table that I didn't think would be there.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Honestly, I probably screwed my thing is I think Percy kind of mentioned it. Brady or whatever doesn't appear to be an overly good relief pitcher that I took a couple picks later. So your free pick probably compensates me for that other pick that I did. But I never make it to draft. I always have to do a list. So I did my list right at the end of the night and kind of went that way. But yeah, Chesty Bonds is a pretty good name. I kind of was thinking it's a mix of Chesty Taylor and uh,
Barry Bonds.
yeah. So
Chesty Bonds. It would be he'd be a fun character to draw if anybody had any drawing skills. What he would look like as a pitcher. I would imagine like a Brian Wilson kind of looking person with a really hairy chest and as you know he has no undershirt on his uniform, so he's got like the top four buttons off, and you just see everything but his nipples.
all right.
That's exactly what you would imagine. He'd just be some guy out of a movie. Rusty Bowler. Well, you mentioned another guy, Brian Hardnett, right? Well, his name is Hardnett, but when you say it
Yeah.
fast, it looks like Hardnett. So that's a that's a pretty cool name there as well.
Well, then, I mean, if you want to take a look at some kind of funny names in the draft, you have who there was some shortstop, Idon or something like um, Garrett Iden. Iddon. That's a different type of name to hear, or
Yeah, I'm looking down right now. Did see yeah. Besides the ones we kind of named, there's no Cletus Funk Hat. I remember if anybody remembers that. I think
oh
that still is the number one name ever in FCM history is Cletus Hat.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, Cletus Fuckhat was pretty good there.
yes, I've got this. All right. So just to round it all off, right? Before we go, because I got to go to bed soon too. Becoming an old man. Um, but so if you had to just throw a dart out there, right? Name your best pitcher and best position player in the draft. Like who's that person that turns out well or turns out the best?
Um, okay, so like we're talking like in the first or like after the
And I'm talking about like, well, I mean, I could see how that could be a little, I mean, like, completely, like the entire draft. Like,
oh
if there's, yeah, completely the entire draft.
well, you know what? For pitcher, I'm gonna have to say Imbert Sarita. Uh,
Yeah, I could
just
see that.
just because I drafted him. And as far as hitter, it's probably going to be Russell Braithwaite. So the first and third picks are kind of what I envision as being the best. But if you want my hot take,
I'll
uh,
take that.
yeah, I think when you get out of the first round, the player that is going to have the biggest effect. Um, now I have to take it. I think the hot take is Chip Kirchner, who
Hmm,
is taken by Peter, is going to end up being a more effective pitcher than both James Leah and Scooter Burge.
that is a fair assessment. That's a very fair assessment. I could easily take that. Scooter Burge, um, if he's taken in the late first, maybe. gets a better grade. But yeah, I could definitely see Kirchner. Oh yeah, there's a lot of people taking in the second that I'd have over those two. But for me, I think, and I mean, I think I'm just gonna throw a few darts out there, but um, I think best hitter in the draft, or best hitter, or best position player, but best hitter in the draft is gonna be McCarthy. And I think the best pitcher in the draft is gonna be Aaron Capes. Like I think that when all of everybody is said and done, obviously I think Sarita is gonna be really good. I think Maines is gonna be really good. Um, and Sarita could definitely turn into to that guy with all the all '90s vitals that everybody really wants, and it's basically almost untradeable. He doesn't though he if he had that 50% ground ball rate, he would be a right-handed Laughlin. All right, I think Laughlin's left-handed, but he would be a right-handed Laughlin, almost like very identical to how they looked in draft day. But I'm gonna go Capes, and the reason why is because he has so much time to develop. That I think when Maddie touched up on it, his vitals didn't even drop when he aged. Like what that could mean for a guy with 93 endurance and 80 health with a 95 to 97 mile per hour fastball. Also, 30% is not that low for a guy that throws that hard. Um, and the way his repertoire already looks, I just really think that if he gets the right development, Maddie got the guy at 6 for sure. And definitely worth the trade up to get him. And then McCarthy, I think McCarthy is going to end up with 100 I. I mean, that's my hot take. I'm not saying that necessarily, but like if he develops the right way, he gets the 1 to 2 point drop on his birthday when it comes up. Um, he gets to 100 I. He's really going to be devastating. It's going to be almost like being able to replace Corson and trade Corson or let Corson hit FA with McCarthy coming up.
And there you guys have it. That's basically our biggest takeaways from the draft, and I think it'll be interesting to kind of see what ends up happening. But I think for the most part, the end of this draft was a little bit weaker than previous drafts.
That we could agree. Hopefully, a toast to a better draft sheet next year. And always remember, nobody's gonna pay more cash for your picks than PR.